Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are doing something a little bit different. Usually, we take a broad look at a topic, but today we are shifting gears. We are entering the engine room.
I like that.
We are taking the hood off the machine to see what actually makes a business function or, fail.
Yeah.
We are conducting a high-intensity learning session specifically designed for those of you prepping for the CIMA E2 exam.
That's right. And I want to be really clear, this isn't just a casual chat about business trends.
No.
We are tackling Chapter 4, Leadership and Management. And my goal here, right from the start, is to make sure this isn't about just memorizing definitions for a multiple choice question.
Right.
This is about understanding the fundamental mechanics of how an organization works. So if you are a student, this is your roadmap to passing. If you're already a manager, this is probably your survival guide.
Exactly. We are going to act as your ultimate tutor for this session. We're going to unpack the toolkit you need, not just to pass the exam, but to actually survive and thrive in a corporate environment. We're talking about power, authority, the dusty old theories that, believe it or not, still rule our lives.
Yeah, absolutely do.
And the really modern headache of managing people you can only see on a Zoom screen.
And that right there is the core tension of this entire session. It's the difference between doing things right, which is management, and doing the right thing, which is leadership.
Wow.
That distinction is the North Star for everything we are going to discuss today. If you get that, you're halfway there.
I love that distinction. So our mission today is to help you, the listener, really understand how to compare and evaluate these styles so you can apply them in a performance management context. We have a massive amount of ground to cover.
We do.
We're going to go chronologically and thematically, starting with the big one, the difference between leadership and management, the moving through the mechanics of power, tackling the history of management theory, and finally landing on the specific styles you need to employ in different situations.
It's a journey, really. It's a journey from the mechanics to the psychology. We start with the classical theories, the nuts and bolts of efficiency from 100 years ago.
The stopwatches and the clipboards.
Exactly. Then we move into the psychology of influence, and finally we land right in the present day with modern challenges like ethical responsibility and, as you said, leading virtual teams.
Okay, let's dive right into the deep end then. Section 4.1. The difference between leadership and management. I feel like in just, casual conversation, we use these words interchangeably all the time. I'm going to speak to management, or we need better leadership. It feels like we are talking about the same people. But in the CIMA world, and in reality, they are two different biological functions of a company, aren't they?
They are profoundly different. And understanding that difference is, I think, the aha moment for so many students.
Right.
If we look at the work of Delegation, which is key for your syllabus, they draw a really sharp line. Management, they say, is about coping with complexity.
Coping with complexity. Let's unpack that. What does that actually look like on a Tuesday morning?
Think about a large organization. It's just inherently chaotic. You have thousands of transactions, hundreds of employees, supply chains, regulations, payroll. It's a mess of moving parts.
Yeah.
A manager's job is to bring order to that chaos.
Okay.
They master routines. They focus on efficiency. They ask questions like, how do we do this faster? And when is this due?
So the manager is the one making sure the trains run on time. They're the mechanics keeping the system greased and moving forward.
Precisely. That's a perfect way to put it. Managers are focused on execution. Now, you contrast that with leadership.
What?
According to Delegation, leadership is about coping with change.
Ah, okay. Not complexity, but change.
Exactly. It isn't about maintaining the status quo. It is about disrupting it or steering the organization through it. Leaders deal with vision and judgment. They focus on effectiveness, not just efficiency. They don't ask how, they ask what and why.
Why are we even doing this versus how do we do this?
Exactly that. There's a famous analogy that I think clarifies this perfectly for the exam.
Let's hear it.
Imagine a group of people cutting a path through a dense jungle. The managers are the ones behind the people with machetes.
Okay.
They are sharpening the machetes, they are setting up the work schedules, making sure everyone has water, and they are measuring how many feet of jungle they clear per hour. They're optimizing the process.
Right. So they're focused on that efficiency metric. We cleared 10 feet yesterday. Let's try for 12 today.
Exactly.
Right.
But the leader is the one who climbs the tallest tree, looks out over the canopy, scans the horizon, and yells down, "Wrong jungle!"
That is the perfect analogy. So the manager is climbing the ladder efficiently, rung by rung.
Yep.
But the leader is the one who makes sure the ladder is leaning against the right wall in the first place.
And that is the crucial takeaway for the exam and, frankly, for your career, that an organization needs both.
It's not that one's better.
Not at all. If you have only leaders, you have a lot of visionaries standing in trees yelling, "Wrong jungle," but no one actually cuts a path anywhere.
Right. You have chaos and high concepts, but zero execution.
Precisely. But if you have only managers, you might clear a beautiful, efficient, perfectly straight path, straight off a cliff.
That's a great way to frame it. They serve different but equally vital functions. Now, this brings us to the mechanics of how these people operate. We need to talk about power versus authority. This is a huge area for the exam, right? A real potential pitfall.
It is massive, and it's a trap that catches a lot of people out. In the exam and in life, you have to be able to distinguish between the two.
Okay, break it down for us.
So authority is technically defined as legitimate power.
Legitimate power.
It is the right to act. It comes from the badge, the job title, the corner office. If you are the finance director, you have the authority to sign off on the budget. That is structural. It's given to you.
Okay, so authority is granted by the organization. It's formal. It's written in your contract, basically.
Exactly. But power. Power is the ability to influence behavior. And here's the trap.
Go on.
Having authority does not guarantee you have power.
Right.
You can have the title of manager, you can have the status, but if no one listens to you, if you can't get them to do anything, you have no power. You are a manager in name only.
We've all had that boss, right? It's the substitute teacher effect.
Yes. Perfect.
They have the authority from the school board to tell you to sit down, but they have absolutely zero power to actually make you do it.
Precisely. And conversely, you can have power without having any formal authority.
How does that work?
Think about the informal leader in a team. The person everyone goes to for advice, the one who kind of sets the mood.
The one who knows how everything really works.
Exactly. They might just be a junior analyst on paper, but if they say, this new policy from head office is rubbish, everyone agrees, and the policy fails. They have immense influence, immense power, but no formal authority.
So where does that influence, that power actually come from, if it's not from the job title? This leads us to French and Raven's sources of power, I'm guessing.
You got it.
This is a classic list. Let's unpack these, because the listener needs to know them inside out for the exam.
Absolutely. So French and Raven identified 5 key sources. First, we have legitimate power.
Yeah?
This is what we just talked about. It's authority. It's the power that comes because people accept that your position gives you the right to give orders.
Okay, so that's the badge. It's the baseline.
Yeah.
But it's also the weakest form on its own, isn't it?
It is fragile, incredibly fragile. If you have to walk around shouting, "I am the boss," you probably aren't leading very well.
Right.
It works for basic compliance, but it never gets you commitment.
Okay, what's next on the list?
Then you have coercive power.
The stick.
The stick. It's based on fear, the threat of punishment, of firing someone or docking their pay. It works to enforce compliance. It gets people to move, but it rarely builds loyalty. In fact, it usually builds resentment.
It gets people to move, but probably only while you're watching them. As soon as you turn your back, the work stops and they're complaining about you at the water cooler.
Exactly. It's the dictator model. Very short-term effectiveness, very long-term damage. Then you have the opposite. Reward power.
The carrot.
The carrot, it's the ability to grant resources, pay raises, promotions, or even just, praise and recognition.
So do this and I'll give you a bonus. This seems pretty standard. This is how most employment works, isn't it? It's transactional.
It is, and that's the key word,
Yeah.
transactional. But it has diminishing returns. If you train people to only move when there is a treat, they stop moving when the treats run out.
Or they start demanding bigger and bigger treats for the same amount of work.
Precisely. But now we get to the 2 that are really interesting for a CIMA student, and usually where the real leadership happens. 4th is expert power. This is derived from knowledge and skill.
Knowledge is power.
Literally. In a finance context, imagine you are a junior accountant who is the only person in the entire company who understands the complex tax implications of a new international deal.
The key person dependency.
Right. Or the only one who knows how to work the new, incredibly complicated ERP system. The CEO, who has all the legitimate power, has to listen to you because you have expert power. If the CEO wants the tax return filed correctly, they are dependent on you. It is a massive lever for career advancement. You make yourself indispensable through knowledge.
That's a great point. You don't need to be the boss to be the expert. And the last one.
The last one is referent power. This is all about personality, charisma, and identification.
The likability factor.
That's a huge part of it, is when people want to follow you because they like you or they admire you or they respect you as a person. It is the people person power. They identify with you.
So let's bring this to life. If we look at a highly effective leader, they're usually blending these, aren't they? They're not just relying on one.
That's the absolute key. Let's look at a concrete example from the source material. Imagine the finance director of ABC Ltd.
Okay.
Now, as finance director, he has legitimate power. He can sign the checks, he can approve budgets, that's a given.
The badge.
The badge. But the source says he also has strong relationships with the owners and employees, and that generates a lot of loyalty.
Okay, so that's referent power.
Exactly. And they also say he is immensely capable. Everyone knows he's brilliant at his job.
Expert power.
Right. So he's a triple threat.
And that's why he's effective.
That is precisely why. If he relied solely on his job title, on his legitimate power, he would be far less effective in driving performance. He doesn't need to use coercive power, the stick, because people want to work for him. They're committed, not just compliant.
That makes perfect sense. So moving on from the sources of power, let's talk about the actual day-to-day work of management. Section 4.2 focuses on some important concepts, and the big one here is delegation.
Delegation. It sounds so simple. I'm busy, so I'll get someone else to do it.
Right.
But for the exam and for your career, this is a minefield.
Why is it a minefield? Is it because people just confuse it with, dumping their boring work on others?
That's part of it, the dumping problem. But the technical definition is key. Delegation is transferring authority to make decisions to a subordinate.
Okay.
You are giving them the right to act. But, and this is the exam pitfall, write this down, you cannot delegate accountability.
Wait, let's pause there because that is so important. You can delegate authority, but not accountability. We use these words, responsibility and accountability, interchangeably in normal English.
We do.
Who is responsible? Who is accountable? In management theory, they are distinct. Break it down for us.
Okay. Responsibility is the obligation to perform the task. If I delegate a report to you, you are now responsible for writing it. You have the duty to do the work. The subordinate has the responsibility.
Got it.
Accountability is the liability to be called to account for the result. That stays with me, the manager. I am ultimately answerable for the outcome.
So let's role play this to make it stick. You are the finance manager. I am your junior analyst.
Okay.
You delegate the task of preparing the monthly sales report to me. You give me the authority to access the data systems. I do it, but, I'm tired, I mess up the formulas, and the report is completely wrong. The numbers are wildly off.
Okay, a catastrophe.
The board of directors sees the wrong numbers and understandably freaks out. Who gets in trouble?
I do, 100%. I cannot stand in front of the board and say, well, don't look at me, it was the junior's fault.
Because they'll just fire you on the spot.
They'll look at me and say, you are the manager. It is your job to ensure the output from your department is correct. You hired the junior, you trained the junior, you delegated the task, and you should have reviewed the work. The failure is yours. I am accountable.
That is such a crucial distinction. Responsibility goes to the person doing the work. Accountability always stays with the manager.
Precisely. And understanding that difference helps explain why so many managers are often afraid to delegate. It's fear. They fear that if they let go of control, they will still be the ones facing the firing squad if it goes wrong. It explains micromanagement. Managers hover because they are terrified of that accountability gap.
But they have to delegate, right? I mean, you can't do everything yourself.
You have to. There are physical and mental limitations to what one person can do. If you don't delegate, you become the bottleneck. Plus, and this is important, delegation is how you develop your staff's skills. If you never let them try, they never learn, and you're stuck doing all the work forever.
Now, there's a term that gets thrown around a lot in modern business, empowerment. Is that just a fancy new age word for delegation? Or is it something more?
It's related, but it's an evolution of the idea. Delegation is often very specific. Here's the task, here's the authority to do it, have it on my desk by 5 p.m.
Right, very transactional.
Empowerment is broader. It's about giving employees autonomy. You are giving them the freedom to determine how to achieve tasks without constant management intervention. It's about ownership.
So instead of saying, write this report using this specific template, empowerment is saying, we need to understand our sales trends better. You figure out the best way to show that to the leadership team.
Exactly. It's essential in modern, fast-moving business environments. The old command and control style is just too slow.
Can you give an example?
Sure, if a customer service rep has to ask a manager for permission every time they need to waive a $10 late fee, the customer gets angry and leaves while they're waiting.
Right.
Empowerment gives that rep the authority and the autonomy to solve the problem on the spot within certain guidelines. It's faster for the customer and more fulfilling for the employee.
It sounds great, but I notice in the source material there's a bit of cynicism about this too. One source mentioned workers calling these terms buzzers, slang for buzzwords.
Yes, and that's a very real risk. If you talk a big game about empowerment, but then you micromanage every single decision.
Or you blame them when it goes wrong.
Exactly. Or if you empower people without giving them the resources or the training to actually succeed, it just breeds cynicism. Employees feel like you're just using fancy words to make them work harder without any extra pay or support. Authentic empowerment requires trust and real support from management.
So true. Authenticity really matters.
Yeah.
All right, let's step back in time. Section 4.3 covers the classical and contemporary theories of management. I always wonder, why do we need to know what some guy thought in 1910?
Ah, yes.
Why does a modern CIMA student need to know about a guy with a stopwatch in a steel mill?
It's a very fair question. The reason is that these theories are the DNA strands of modern business. We might think we are very advanced and digital and agile, but a massive amount of what we do today is just a remix of these old ideas. They are the foundations everything else is built on.
So let's meet the ancestors. Who's first in the classical school?
First up is Frederick Taylor in scientific management.
Okay.
Taylor was an engineer, and he looked at management as a science. He believed there was one best way to do every single job.
The one best way. That sounds incredibly rigid.
It was. He focused on extreme efficiency, division of labor, and he believed, fundamentally, that money was the only real motivator for workers.
Right.
He viewed workers almost like machines, as inputs in a system. He would literally stand there with a stopwatch and say, if you lift the shovel this way, it takes 2 seconds. If you lift it that way, it takes 1.5 seconds. Everyone must now lift it that way.
Where do we see this today? Because it sounds a bit dehumanizing, to be honest.
It can be, but look at a fast food chain.
Good one.
The way a burger is assembled is scripted down to the very last second. Put the pickle here, squeeze the sauce for exactly 2 seconds. That is pure, unadulterated Taylorism.
Or an Amazon warehouse.
A perfect modern example. The scanner tells the worker exactly where to walk, what to pick, and how many seconds they have to do it.
So,
that is Taylorism 2.0, powered by data.
right. So it's great for consistency and efficiency, but maybe terrible for the soul.
Sometimes, yes, it absolutely treats humans as components. Now, after Taylor, we have the administrative school, which was led by Henri Fayol.
Okay.
While Taylor looked at the individual worker on the factory floor, Fayol looked up at the manager. He wanted to define the process of management.
This is the famous acronym, isn't it? POCCC.
POCCC, yes. Planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. Even today, if you look at a job description for a manager on LinkedIn, it's basically just those 5 things rephrased. Fayol created the blueprint for the org chart and what a manager actually does.
It's timeless in that sense. And then the third one in this classical group is Weber.
Max Weber, the father of bureaucracy. Now, bureaucracy is a dirty word today. We think of red tape, waiting in line at the DMV, filling out forms in triplicate.
Yeah, slow and painful.
But Weber actually designed it to be the ideal form of organization.
How on earth can red tape be ideal?
Well, you have to think about what came before it. Before bureaucracy, organizations ran on favoritism, nepotism, and the personal whims of the owner.
Right. If the boss liked you, you got a raise. If he didn't like your face, you got fired. It was like Game of Thrones in the office.
I see. So it was unpredictable and unfair.
Exactly. Weber wanted a system based on clear rules, a defined hierarchy, and impersonality. He wanted fairness.
So the impersonality wasn't a bug, it was a feature.
It was the main feature. If you apply for a leave of absence, the decision should be based on the rule book, not on whether the manager is in a good mood that day. Bureaucracy was invented to create fairness and predictability.
So all these classical schools seem very rational, very logical, almost robotic. When did we start realizing that humans are, well, human? When did feelings finally enter the chat?
That shifted with the human relations school, and the key figure here is Elton Mayo. This came out of the famous Hawthorne experiments.
Oh, I love this story. Tell us about the lights.
So in the 1920s, researchers went into a factory. the Hawthorne plant, to see if better lighting would improve productivity.
A very Taylorist idea. Totally. Improve the physical condition, get more output, and sure enough, they turned up the lights and productivity went up.
Success. Logic wins the day.
But then, just to check their findings, they turned the lights down, making it dimmer, and guess what happened?
Productivity went up again.
It went up again.
Wait, what? That defies physics.
It defies simple logic.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were baffled. They eventually realized it had nothing to do with the lighting. It was the fact that someone was finally paying attention to the workers. The workers felt special. They felt heard. They were part of an experiment, and they formed a tight social group. Mayo discovered that social factors, relationships, morale, a sense of belonging, were often more powerful motivators than physical conditions or even money.
That is the human relations shift. Treating people, not like machines. That's basically the birth of the HR department.
It really is. And that brings us to the modern view, which tries to reconcile all of this. Contingency theory.
The "it depends" approach.
It's the most realistic, and for the CIMA exam, it's often the right answer. Charles Handy is a big name here. He argues there is no single golden rule. You can't say autocratic is always bad and democratic is always good.
Because sometimes, if the building is on fire, you really don't want a democratic vote on which exit to use.
That is the perfect example. The best leadership or management style depends on 4 variables: the leader themselves, the subordinates, the task, and the environment.
Walk us through a scenario using that framework.
Okay, let's use your fire example. The environment is a crisis. The task is to evacuate safely, so it's simple but high risk. The subordinates are panicked and don't know what to do.
Right.
In that moment, do you want a human relations leader saying, hey guys, let's sit in a circle and discuss how we feel about the various exits?
Absolutely not. I want a dictator. I want Taylor. Walk here, now, go.
Exactly. You want a commanding autocratic leadership style. But now, change the scenario. You are running a research lab with PhD scientists trying to cure cancer. And you try to use that same commanding style, discover the cure by 2 p.m. on Friday. What happens?
They'll laugh at you and then they'll all quit.
They'll quit. For that group, doing that complex task, you need a participative, maybe even a laissez-faire approach. You need to give them autonomy to think and experiment. It's all about the fit.
It's about fit. That leads us perfectly into section 4.4.
Yeah.
Leadership specifically. We've talked about the theory, but let's talk about the style. You mentioned the toolkit earlier.
Yes, and Daniel Goleman is the go-to guru here. He suggests that a good leader is like a professional golfer.
Okay.
You have a bag full of clubs. These are your different leadership styles. You don't use the putter for a 300-yard drive, and you don't use the driver on the putting green.
Right.
A bad leader is one who tries to use the same club for every single shot. A good leader knows how to pick the right club for the situation.
So what are the clubs in Goleman's bag? Let's run through them.
There are 6. First, you have the visionary style. This is the come with me leader. It's great when you need a new direction or a fresh vision. It says, this is where we're going and why it's exciting. It mobilizes people towards a vision.
Okay, the big picture club.
Yep. Second, coaching. The mantra is, try this. This is focused on one-on-one development. It builds long-term capability in your team, but it takes a lot of time and patience. It's the investment club.
Right.
Third, affiliative. The motto is people come first. This is used to heal rifts in a team, build team harmony, and improve morale. This is the Elton Mayo style.
That sounds nice, but I imagine you can't use it all the time or nothing gets done.
You're exactly right. If you're too affiliative, poor performance might go uncorrected because you don't want to upset anyone. It avoids conflict.
Okay, what's number 4?
Fourth is democratic. What do you think? This style is all about building consensus through participation. It's great for getting buy-in and collecting valuable ideas from the team.
But the downside is...
It can be incredibly slow and can lead to endless meetings and no decision if there's no consensus.
And the last 2, these are the dangerous ones, the ones that use with caution, right?
Yes, these come with a big warning label. First is pace setting. The motto is, do as I do now. The leader sets extremely high standards for performance and models them. They work harder and faster than everyone else.
That sounds good on paper.
Yeah.
Leading by example. Why is it toxic?
Because usually the leader is a high performer and the team are, average or still learning. The leader runs at 100 miles per hour. The team tries to keep up, they burn out, and they fail.
And the leader gets frustrated.
The leader gets frustrated and says, why can't you be like me? It destroys confidence and morale. It only works if you have a team of highly motivated, highly competent experts who can keep up.
And finally,
commanding, the do-what-I-tell-you style. This is the military because-I-said-so approach.
the crisis mode club.
Exactly. It's useful in a genuine emergency, like the building being on fire, or in a turnaround situation where you need to make urgent, unpopular decisions. But if you use it every day, you'll kill the culture, stifle innovation, and drive away all your best people.
It's really about versatility then.
Yeah.
You can't just be a nice guy leader or a tough guy leader. You have to be adaptable and read the room.
That's the art of it.
Now, speaking of doing the right thing, we have to touch on ethical leadership. This is a huge component in the syllabus.
It is, and it's especially critical for accountants and finance professionals who are seen as the conscience of the business. The concept of tone from the top is everything here.
From the top.
Leaders model behavior. If the finance director cuts corners on compliance or jokes about cheating on expenses, everyone down the chain will see that and think it's acceptable.
It's contagious. The culture rots from the head down.
It absolutely is. The sources mention frameworks like Carroll's criteria for ethical decision-making. Things like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or utilitarianism, what is the greatest good for the greatest number of people? In the exam, you might get a scenario where a manager has to make a tough call, like closing a factory. You need to analyze it not just from a financial perspective, but from an ethical one. You have to show you are thinking about the impact on employees and the community.
And a very modern challenge for leadership, which I think everyone listening can relate to, is the leadership of virtual teams. The sources are very specific about this being a critical exam topic.
Absolutely. This wasn't in the textbooks 20 years ago, but now it's a daily reality for millions. The old management by walking around where you just wander through the office and see who's working and get the vibe.
That's gone.
It's impossible. You can't see your team. You can't walk around a Zoom call.
So what are the key success factors here? If I can't see that Bob is at his desk working, how do I manage Bob?
The sources highlight a few critical things. First, and it sounds basic, but technology. You have to ensure the tools work seamlessly. Zoom, Slack, cloud access. If the tech is failing, the team is failing. There's no backup.
The friction has to be zero.
Zero. Second, and this is a paradox, you need more structure in a virtual team, not less.
Really? I would have thought the opposite.
In an office, I can casually lean over a desk and ask, hey, how's that report coming along? In a virtual team, if I don't set a clear deliverable and a firm deadline, Bob might just drift for 3 days. You have to manage by output, not by presence.
That's a huge mental shift. We used to pay people for being present from 9 to 5. Now we have to pay them for the result, regardless of when they do it. Absence of visibility requires presence of structure.
Perfectly said. Third is communication. In an office, information flows osmotically. You just hear things over the cubicle wall.
We pick things up.
In a virtual team, silence is dangerous. It can be misinterpreted as disapproval or that someone is lost. You have to over-communicate to build trust and ensure everyone is aligned.
And the fourth point.
And fourth, social support. You have to deliberately create a virtual water cooler. The sources mention the huge risk of isolation. If you don't intentionally create space for casual, non-work-related chat, the team loses its social bond. It falls apart.
It feels forced, though, doesn't it? Okay, everyone, it's 3 p.m. Mater. Time for our scheduled fun chat on Zoom.
It feels awkward at first, but it's necessary. Without it, people become isolated. They feel like gig workers, not team members. And if you don't build that social glue, they will leave for a 5% raise somewhere else because they have no loyalty to the team, only to the paycheck. The manager has to become a social director, as well as a task manager.
Okay, we are moving into the final stretch of theory, section 4.5, theories of leadership. And the big one here is transactional versus transformational. This feels like the manager versus leader debate remixed.
It is very similar, but it focuses on the exchange between the leader and the follower. Transactional leadership is the deal. It's a transaction. You do the work, I give you the pay, I monitor for deviations from the plan, you fix them. It focuses on systems, the status quo, and doing things right.
It sounds like standard employment. Quid pro quo. The carrot and stick approach.
It is. And it works fine in stable environments with routine tasks.
Why?
But it doesn't inspire people. It doesn't get you that discretionary effort, that willingness to go the extra mile.
Right.
That's where transformational leadership comes in. This is the dream. It's about inspiring others to go beyond simple compliance to real commitment. Transformational leaders change the culture. They appeal to higher ideals and values. They're the ones who say, we aren't just laying bricks here, we are building a cathedral. They give meaning to the work.
This is the Steve Jobs type, right? The famous
Yeah.
reality distortion field.
Yes. Or a turnaround CEO who convinces everyone to take a pay cut to save the company because they believe in the future vision. It's vital for change management. If you need to turn around a failing company, you can't do it with just transactions. You need to sell a vision that people will sacrifice for.
And finally, situational leadership. This ties back to contingency theory, which we talked about earlier.
It does. It just reiterates that for the exam, you will be presented with scenarios. You have to diagnose the situation. You might get a question like, you are leading a team of highly experienced, highly motivated experts. The wrong answer is use a commanding style and tell them what to do.
Right.
The right answer is use a democratic or even a laissez-faire approach. Let them get on with it. Conversely, if you have a team of brand new trainees, you need to be much more directive and provide clear instructions.
Okay, we've covered a mountain of theory. I think my brain is full. Let's bring it all home with practical application and exam pitfalls. How do we actually use this in a performance management context in the real world?
Well, you have to connect the dots. How do we measure if leadership is actually working? You look for the evidence.
Okay.
Look at staff turnover. If everyone in a particular department is leaving, you probably have a bad leader or a toxic culture created by that leader. It's a massive red flag.
The numbers tell a story?
They do.
All right.
Look at absenteeism. High sickness rates often correlate with stress and poor management. People get sick of coming to work, literally.
Right.
Look at innovation. If your company needs new ideas to survive, you need transformational leadership to foster that creativity. If you have zero innovation, it might be because you're stuck in a rigid, bureaucratic, transactional rut.
And for the students listening right now, cramming for the exam, what are the bear traps? Where do they consistently lose marks on this topic?
Okay, 3 big ones. The biggest is confusing manager with leader. Don't assume a manager is automatically inspiring. Sometimes their job is just to be a good, efficient bureaucrat. Don't mix up the roles.
Oh.
Second, the one right way trap. Students often look for a single best style. They'll write democratic is always best because it is nice. No. In CIMA E2, the answer is almost always, it depends on the context. You must look at the scenario and apply the contingency approach.
Always it depends.
Always. And third, virtual team blindness. Don't treat a virtual team scenario in an exam question just like a face-to-face one. If the question explicitly mentions the team is dispersed globally, you must mention the need for extra communication, better technology support, and managing by output. If you don't, you've missed the point.
That is gold dust for the exam.
Mm-hmm.
So let's wrap this up with a quick summary. We've gone from the rigid classical school Taylor and his stopwatch to the flexible contingency school, where the answer is always, it depends.
Right.
We've learned that power is not just the badge on your chest, it's your expertise and your relationships. And we've seen that leading a team on Zoom requires a completely different set of muscles than leading them in the boardroom.
Absolutely. And I think the so what for you, the listener, is that as a future finance manager, you will need to toggle between all of these roles. You can't just be one thing.
Yeah, pick a lane.
No. Sometimes you have to be the bureaucrat checking compliance, auditing the books, enforcing the rules. That's classical management. But then, an hour later, you have to be the visionary selling a new 5-year strategy to the board. That's transformational leadership.
You have to be a shapeshifter.
Exactly. The job demands it.
Okay, here is a final thought to leave you with, something to mull over. We talked about how the classical manager was built for the factory floor of the 20th century. But we are moving rapidly into a gig economy, a world of freelancers, artificial intelligence, and fully remote work. My question is, can a strict, commanding, Taylorist manager even survive in this new world? Or are we seeing the slow extinction of the traditional boss in favor of the facilitator or the coach?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? The very nature of power is shifting from the organization to the skilled individual.
Something to think about. Good luck with your studies. Apply these lenses to your own workplace tomorrow. It makes the day much more interesting, I promise, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
You're a